All right, so let's dive right into this West Ham and Manchester United match because, oh boy, that ending, I mean, what a finish. I think everyone's here to dissect that penalty call, the one that basically sealed the deal for West Ham and left, well, let's be honest, especially Man U fans, scratching their heads.
Yeah, definitely a head scratcher.
So set the scene for us. It's late in the game, scores are even, and suddenly chaos in the Man U box.
Right, total chaos.
Jared Bowen goes down. There's that moment, that pause, and everyone's holding their breath, just waiting for the ref's call.
It's funny, because referee David Coote, he seemed almost unfazed at first, like nothing happened, no whistle play on, as if he hadn't seen anything remotely penalty-worthy. But then, enter the VAR.
It's like a plot twist.
It is. Michael Oliver, the VAR official, he chimes in, tells Coote, hey, maybe take another look at that. And that's when things got, well, really interesting.
Yeah, because that second look, that's what led to the penalty.
Right.
West Ham fans are going wild, and Man U, well, they're not exactly thrilled. And Erik ten Hag, his post-match interview, it was basically a masterclass in barely contained frustration.
Oh, he did not hold back. I mean, Ten Hag basically launched into this whole thing about how VAR is losing sight of what it's supposed to be for. His argument is that it should only be used when there's a clear and obvious error. And to him, this incident just didn't fit that bill.
But here's the thing that I found even more interesting. He didn't just zero in on this one call. He brought up what he sees as a pattern of, let's call them questionable VAR decisions, all going against Man U this season.
Absolutely. And he even went so far as to say these calls are directly affecting their performance. Think about it. You're playing well, creating opportunities, and then boom, a decision like this goes against you. It's got to mess with the team's head, their confidence, their whole approach to the game.
And to add fuel to the fire, Man U had, what, a bunch of missed chances, particularly in the first half.
Yeah, didn't they?
I mean, Ten Hag said they had like 6 or 7 solid opportunities to score.
6 or 7, maybe even more. But they just couldn't convert. And this is where the tactics get really interesting, It's not just about how many chances you create, but the quality of those chances. Were these open play, high percentage shots, or were they more like half chances, set pieces? Was it poor finishing, a lack of composure in that crucial final third, or maybe even, some tactical weaknesses that West Ham were exploiting?
So it's a double whammy for Man U. You create chances but can't score, and then a decision that could turn the whole game goes against you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of situation that could really send a team spiraling. But the thing is, Ten Hag still seemed strangely confident in their overall playing style.
That's what's fascinating. Amidst all this chaos, all the frustration, he chose to focus on the positives. He was actually pretty complimentary about their performance, praising their movement, passing, even their defensive strength. He brought up how they bounced back from similar setbacks last season, basically pointing to their resilience.
So it seems like he's trying to find that middle ground. He's acknowledging the frustration. He's not shying away from the whole VAR debate, but he's also putting out this optimistic vibe, almost like he's rallying the troops, preventing negativity from seeping in.
It's leadership in action, right? He's focusing on what they can control.
Yeah.
The effort, the tactics, the mentality. Can't control VAR, but you can control how you react to it.
And that leads us to the bigger issue here, the role of VAR in football. And that whole debate that's always raging about how it's used, whether it's consistent. Now, you might be thinking, okay, it's just one game, one penalty. But this shines a light on those bigger questions about VAR. Is it messing up the flow of the game? Is it sucking the life out of the human element of refereeing? Or is it a necessary evil? Like it's there to make sure things are fair, to correct those glaring mistakes.
It's complex, right? You've got people who are vehemently on both sides of this. On one hand, there are those who say VAR totally disrupts the flow, causes those annoying delays, and sometimes even creates more controversy than it solves.
And then you have those who argue that VAR is absolutely essential, especially in these high-stakes games. Every little call can have huge consequences.
Absolutely. And to really dig into this whole debate, you got to go beyond the emotions and look at the mechanics of VAR. How does this thing actually work? What are the rules? What are the criteria for calling something a clear and obvious error?
Because that's where things get tricky. Like what one person sees as a clear and obvious error, another might totally disagree with. And how do you factor in those subjective calls like handballs or fouls in the box?
Exactly. And then there's the whole issue of camera angles. VAR officials are relying on whatever feeds they get, and those angles can be deceiving, sometimes inconclusive.
So even with all the tech, there's still that human element. And that's what makes this whole discussion so interesting. It's not just black and white, right and wrong. It's about navigating this whole web of technology, human perception, and the heart of the game itself.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And that's why this specific incident, De Lig's challenge on Ings, it's a perfect example of how VAR can just spark endless debate. I mean, if you actually slow down the replay, look at it from different angles, you can kind of see both sides. Some people see a penalty, some don't. It really boils down to interpretation.
And that's where those VAR protocols, those specific rules, they come in, right? For a penalty to be overturned or given through VAR, it's got to be a clear and obvious error by the ref on the field. But how do you even define clear and obvious? There's got to be some wiggle room there, some subjectivity? No.
Oh, absolutely. There's a whole set of guidelines that VAR officials use, but it's not just a checklist. There's still that human judgment involved applying those guidelines. They've got to consider things like how intense the contact was, did the player mean to do it, and whether that contact actually impacted the play.
So it's not as easy as just looking at a replay and saying, yep, that's a foul, or nope, that's a dive. It's way more nuanced than that.
Exactly. And that's why you often see these VAR reviews that go on forever. They're analyzing the incident from every single angle, trying to figure out if the referee's first call was actually genuinely wrong.
Which takes us back to Ten Hag and why he was so frustrated. He felt this particular incident, it wasn't a clear and obvious error, more like a borderline call, a judgment call that could have gone either way.
And this is where the whole mental game comes into play, right? When a team feels like they've been on the wrong end of a bunch of these 50-50 VAR calls, well, it can mess with their faith in the system. They might start to think the refs are biased, that they're just not getting any luck, and that can spiral, affect how they actually play.
It's almost like you start believing the refs are against you, so you react worse to every call that doesn't go your way, and then it's just frustration, arguing with the refs, and you lose your focus on the game.
Exactly. And that's why managers, guys like Ten Hag, they got to try to keep things positive, focus on the things they can control, tell their players to do the same.
Yeah, walking a tightrope. You have to acknowledge the frustration, address the VAR issue, but also project this confidence that the team can overcome these obstacles.
And that's where experience matters. Ten Hag, he's been through this before. He knows how to handle tough situations, how to guide his team when things get rough.
So, zooming out a bit, what does all this mean for the bigger picture? Where does this whole incident leave the debate surrounding VAR?
Well, I think this incident and the fact that Ten Hag was so vocal about it, it emphasizes that we need to keep talking about VAR, keep refining it. It's not about getting rid of it entirely. It's about making it work better, more consistently, more transparently, making it actually fit the spirit of the game.
Right, so that means revisiting how they define clear and obvious error, the training for VAR officials, even how they explain VAR decisions to the fans in the stadium and those watching at home.
There's always room to do things better. And this whole situation has definitely sparked some important conversations about how to improve VAR.
And that's where you come in. We've broken down the incident, the VAR protocols, the psychology behind it all, and the need for continued discussion. But now, we want to hear from you. What do you think about this whole penalty call? Did VAR get it right or wrong? And how do you think these kind of incidents and the way managers like Ten Hag are reacting, how's that going to affect VAR in the future? Lots to think about there. We're really interested to hear your thoughts.
At the end of the day, football, it's shaped by the players, sure, but also by the fans, those who watch the game, who are invested in it. It's your voices, your opinions, your insights that matter, especially in this whole debate about VAR and how it's changing the game.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into this, let's be honest, controversial match, we're left with this big question. Are we going to see a change in how VAR is used in the Premier League? Will there be more scrutiny, more transparency, maybe even some changes to the actual rules? Tough to say.
Yeah, who knows? But what's clear is that this whole thing has really sparked a conversation, and it goes way beyond this one game. It's about that balance, that fine line between technology and human judgment, about fairness, consistency, and what makes football so exciting to watch in the first place.
And as we go forward, it's so important to keep having these conversations, to question things, and to work towards a future where VAR is there to make the game better, not, take away from it. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time for another look into the world of football.